Hello there. Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to ask a short favor. If you're interested in either of the two books that I have written and am about to release, head on over to my website at theanxioustruth.com/books. There you can learn about both books, one of which is free, and you can get on my mailing list to be notified when each book is released and how you can get it. I would really appreciate that. Okay, let's get rolling. Okay, we are cooking, I think. Hey guys, Drew here, thatanxietyguy.com. On screen with me here is my buddy Billy from the UK. Say hi, Billy.
Hello there.
Billy runs Anxiety United, anxietyunited.co.uk.
And .com now,
.com, that's right, anxietyunited.com in the UK. And Billy and I crossed paths many, many years ago. I don't know, it's been a while, right?
It's got to be 12, 13 years, I think.
Something along those lines, I'm guessing. Initially on YouTube when we were both struggling with anxiety issues way back in, what the kids called the day. And, we became friends. We're still friends now. And we are going to do a series of video and podcast episodes based on sort of an Anxiety 101 course.
This is it.
Right?
This is it.
Right? The kind of the basics. This is the meat and potatoes of how you have to approach recovering from anxiety issues. And we're going to take you kind of step by step through some basic principles. And I think one of the best things about the way we're going to do this, and jump in anytime, is that we're going to give you like actual, real, concrete stuff, right? As opposed to just generic concepts and, that sort of thing. So this will be first in the series of, I guess, a fairly, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 episodes at least. I'm not sure.
That's the plan. I think one key thing as well, this is for people that have got minor anxiety up to the heightened state where you're, constantly suffering, whether it's generalized anxiety or whatever. These principles apply to the whole spectrum.
Yes, that is true. So, whether you're just dealing with generalized anxiety or you're a housebound agoraphobic, we probably have something here that's going to help out.
That's it. Stick around.
Yes, stick around. Very good. One of the things that I would like to say before we start, and Bill, you might have something to add to this, is I think what we're going to tell people might ruffle a few feathers here and there, because we're going to intentionally tell people to be uncomfortable in certain instances.
And this is the downfall of many a recovery attempt, I think.
Where, in fact, we're going to talk about really, in this episode specifically, which is sort of our intro to the whole series, is the fact that you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And the cornerstone of this whole plan really is accepting that our inner drive, our innate drive for safety and comfort, is you have to start ignoring that. Like your goal is not to be uncomfortable here. Your goal is to learn to be uncomfortable, and then at the end you'll wind up comfortable again. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah,
100%. And that's, for me personally, I think that's one of the interesting dynamics for this series, is that you've it feels like you've sort of stepped over that, the comfort and the safety. You've managed to push through, whereas I'm, kind of still struggling to battle through that. But that's the dynamic of this podcast, is that you're sort of evidence and living proof that you do this and it works, and I'm sort of living proof that if you don't do it, then if you do what you always do, you'll get what you always get, or whatever the saying is. I can't remember.
That's very true, and I think that will make this kind of a good deal, because I think we can discuss the things that you're going through and then how I managed to get through them already. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good deal. And I should say before we start, too, that so many people that listen to my podcast or watch my channel will say, ask me almost every day, are you cured? Like, are you cured of anxiety? And what I always say is, it's a reasonable question to ask. I will never say that I'm actually cured. I'm still predisposed to those things.
Yeah.
When I get really stressed or sleep deprived, which is kind of all the time. But, when things get really rough for me, I do get predisposed to anxiety. And once in a while, I still have an actual panic attack. But the difference is it doesn't really impact my life much anymore. So, people always look at it especially when they're asking for advice. And, well, it's easy for you to say you're cured, but I'm never going to say I'm cured. I have to stay.
I think it's safe to say that everybody suffers with anxiety at some point.
Sure.
So nobody's ever going to be free from anxiety. There's always going to be that. But I think for you, maybe the triggers have become more noticeable. So the triggers are more, I don't know what the word is.
I can predict the triggers. I sort of
Yeah.
know what they are. And
Yeah,
whereas, back in when I was really struggling when you and I first met, like a cloud going over the sun could
Yeah,
put
yeah.
me into panic. That doesn't happen anymore. Now,
Mm-hmm.
they're much more concrete things. I'm really stressed. I have a lot of business things going on, family things going on. There's a lot of pressure on me. It might come out. So, but anyway, the point
Yeah,
of it
yeah.
is I would definitely not say I'm cured in any way, shape, or form. So hopefully you take that for what it's worth.
We're all on the journey.
Yeah, we are all on a journey. So let's get into it. How do you want to start?
Well, we were going to look briefly back at the article that you wrote a while back, because it's, the methods don't change.
True.
The proof is in the pudding. So we need to just head over and go through that and point out the valuable information that's there.
Okay, sounds like a plan. And I will probably, in my video description, I will link it on my site, Billy. You can obviously post it on Anxiety United, so you can read along, depending on whose channel you're watching or listening to.
This is it. There'll be links to all social media platforms and websites, and
so you guys can certainly follow along as we go. And I think, all right, so we'll get into it. And when I wrote this, like Billy said, many years ago. And full disclosure, it's really based a lot on the work of Claire Weeks, which is, Dr. Claire Weeks wrote many books about the subject many years ago. She's gone now, but her methods to me are still the gold standard. So a lot of this is just a watering down and a consolidation of what she says.
Which, incidentally, I think you'll find most of the paid-for methods are probably based on the same principles. It's just that this is free.
They
carry on.
Yes, they absolutely are. That's absolutely correct. Yes, she started the whole thing, and everybody else just sort of building on her work.
It seems to be that way.
Yes, at least the most effective thing. So the way I started the article was pointing out that the single most common mistake, and I used to make it too, it's what kept me held back for a long time. The single most common mistake that I see people make when they're trying to overcome anxiety and panic issues, like agoraphobia and things of that nature, is that they think that they are trying to get to safety and comfort, which makes sense because you're in a panic or you're having tremendous amounts of anticipatory anxiety, afraid to go out the door or whatever. You're obviously not, you're afraid and very uncomfortable. So the misguided direction I see people go in is to say, well, no, I have to I have to get rid of that fear somehow, and I have to get to comfort as quickly as I can. And I think that is the basic misassumption that keeps so many people held back.
I think it's also the thoughts that you have to prepare yourself for these things before you even go into them. So with the bottles of water and the mints and parking nearer to stores and all those things, all those predetermined things that you think of before you go out and tackle whatever it is. They're also they're safety behaviors, comfort blankets, whatever they are.
Well, we're going to talk about all those things as we go into each individual episode. But yes, that's true. And in our minds, we build all these things up to almost insurmountable obstacles because we know that we are going to be like terrified and horrifically uncomfortable, and nobody wants to be that way. The natural drive is to feel safe and be comfortable. That's obvious. We all come from the factory wanting to feel that way, and so we wind up approaching this saying, well, my goal here is to get is to wipe out the fear and to be comfortable as quick as I can. And that's a huge mistake, and we'll talk about why.
Yes.
Yeah. So I make the assertion, and really Dr. Weeks made it first, that to really get past these things, to really get past them completely and not let them control your life or impact your life that much, you have to really learn to completely and utterly, and we use this word so often, I know you and I have talked about it so many times, you have to accept that fear.
That's the big one.
With every fiber of your brain and body, you have to accept it, welcome it in, know what's going to happen, and you have to understand that it is baseless and ultimately harmless. That's a big deal. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think it's one of the main questions that I've been asked when I've spoke of acceptance before is, what is acceptance? And I think there's so many different variations of what people see as acceptance. But I think Claire Weeks said it best. It's accepting everything. It's accepting the symptoms, the sensations, the worrying, flashing fears that you have.
Yes.
That is the basic principle, is accepting the whole thing, not fighting against it, not going into it accepting that this is going to be rough. Just accept that you're going to do it. That's my taking on it. It's as basic as that. It really is as basic as accepting that you may feel whatever you may feel. You may think what you may think, but you know that you're going to come out at the end of it, or perhaps you don't know, but you will.
Well, and that's true. I think in the beginning, especially, somehow something in us isn't sure we're going to come out the other side, and that's what keeps us kind of paralyzed a little bit. And no, I'm not going to take a walk today, or I'm not going to leave the house today, or I'm going to find an excuse to cancel lunch with a friend, or whatever it is. So when you really accept that, you have to really, and this is counterintuitive to everything that our brains want us to do, and our drive for safety and comfort is you have to really say, okay, this is going to be rough. This is.
I suppose it. Sorry, it also comes down to accepting that you are actually going to feel that you can't accept it as well.
Yes.
So it's kind of accept that you're going to be nervous, accept that you don't want to do this. Because that's what I did many walks recently on my channel that you can check them out. There'll be a link, but just accepting the fact that I was going to get out of the house every day, regardless of how I felt. I just got it into my head that was going to become my new habit for the month, and just accepting that whether I was having palpitations or feeling dizzy or whatever it was, jelly legs, I accepted the fact that I was going to get out the door every day. And the progress there in just that 1 month period was, well, it's there to see.
Yeah, that's very true. That is a good series worth watching for sure. Because the difference between day 1 and day 30 is just, it's kind of crazy.
I will just point out,
right.
I honestly didn't really see that much of a difference, but everybody that has seen it has said. But I think that's another negative aspect of having this. You just don't see progress for what it is. You don't see those little steps.
That's true. And I think you're right. We're our own worst critics sometimes, and we expect that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I wasn't able to say walk to the mailbox, the post box, sorry. And, I wasn't able to get to the mailbox yesterday, and now I'm at the mailbox today, so I must be fixed. And, we judge ourselves very harshly when the next day is a struggle to get to the mailbox again. So accepting is the main part of this. You have to accept. And I always say, for me, the sentence I use all the time that I tell people is, you have to be afraid before you cannot be afraid. So you're going to have to accept that the object of the game here is to learn how to be afraid, because when you fully accept that fear, that's when you unmask the fear and you expose it as baseless and illogical. Getting out of your car may seem like the most dangerous thing in the world to do, and you react so strongly and you stay, kind of ensconced in the car, but there's really no danger when you get out of the car, out of the house, or off the sofa, or to the supermarket, whatever it is. And you have to fully accept that you're going to feel afraid and highly uncomfortable, and then you will begin to acclimate, and you will no longer fear those things, and you start to break the cycle. So stop going into it expecting that your recovery program is going to immediately make you feel better. It won't. It's actually going to make you feel a little bit worse before it makes you feel better.
It's a long process.
Yes.
But one that of course is worth taking. Of course. We get one opportunity.
We do. And the rewards are huge. So we talked about this when we were talking the other day. And even back then, I would say, so it's just like going to the gym or doing anything that might be unpleasant. It's not the most fun thing that we do. Back in the days when I had to get up in the morning and force myself, and you've seen many of my old videos, right? We were sharing them back then.
Yep.
Force myself to get dressed in the dead of winter, freezing, snowing, whatever. Like the first thing I would do, get in the car and drive around my neighborhood, being terrified. Like I hated doing that. I freaking keep it G-rated here. I freaking hated it, but I hated doing it, but I love having done it. Right.
Well, that's it. You are where you are now because of the steps that you took back then.
Yeah, and I think accepting is, like you said, part of it is accepting that you're going to feel crappy, but that you'll feel like over the moon. To use the British term. When you're done, you feel so good about yourself. Like, oh my God, I freaking did that. One of the things that was most impactful for me in the very beginning was seeing some of your early walks, like to your local shop or to the mailbox, and to see like how elated you were at the end.
Yeah, the jubilation.
Yes.
You can't replicate that feeling.
No.
I managed to get a panic attack once on film when I was out grocery shopping. And I don't know whether other people can tell, but the way that I felt after I'd rode it out, I stayed in there on the second floor, deep into the supermarket. And that feeling afterwards, you honestly do feel like you've never had a problem with anxiety and panic. It's so clear.
Right? So
crazy.
If we can get people to buy into this and okay, it's going to be okay. It's okay to be afraid, accept that you're going to feel terrible when you do this stuff. But when it's over, you feel like you've slain a dragon. And
That's it.
would
That's
you,
the goal.
for me, I think when I would do these things, literally, like you said, you forgot that you ever had a problem being in that
Mm, mm,
supermarket. And even if it's only for a few minutes, and then that feeling will last longer and longer as you go. But for a
yeah,
few minutes, I would literally think like, why was I so afraid to do this? This was so easy.
that's it.
Like,
You
so
question everything at that moment
you
once
do.
you've gone through it. And I'm by no means brave enough at the moment to put myself in that situation, but I do know what it's like to go through it.
Oh, I've seen you do it. I think you're selling
I
yourself
know,
short. I've seen
yeah,
you do
yeah,
it.
I know.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen you do it. So anyway, that's kind of the deal. And there's some stuff in there about the emotional versus the rational side of your brain, and some people will argue that one way or the other. And I think when we say unmasking the fear and accepting that you're going to feel terrible before you feel better, and accepting that the fear is baseless and illogical, it's based on nothing. It's actually a fear of how you feel, and it's a fear of fear. And so intellectually, you may know that. I think we both talked about this too, right? You know,
Yeah.
there's really no danger. We know this, but yet,
Well, that's it. I mean, how many times have we been through these periods of intense anxiety and survived? That's the evidence. That's all that we should need, is that
right.
it hasn't put us into a situation where we can't get back to some kind of normality, you know, because that's where I class myself now. Even though I still suffer with anxiety, I see this as my normal sort of life now.
Yeah.
But when I'm in the heightened anxiety, I always come back to this stage where I can still walk around. You know, maybe I can't go freaking dance around the town, but
Yeah.
this is my normality now. And when I'm in a heightened state, I always come back to this. So it's never been that bad where I've ended up permanently panicking and, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Nobody's died. No one's,
Exactly.
gone
We always
insane.
come back down.
You always come back. Exactly. You always let the tell the tale. And I think at the end of the series, one of the things I try and impress upon people is that you'll learn that whether you do something or you do nothing, you're always going to get back to this state of,
Yes.
of okay.
That's the point.
And nothing is faster than something. So
Yes.
as crazy as that sounds, and we'll talk about that later, doing nothing is
Mm-hmm.
faster than doing something. So there's a recipe for success that I lay out in the article that have 4 things: the acceptance, courage, persistence, and patience. I don't know if we want to go through that a little bit. 'Cause that's
100%.
kind of the cornerstone of, we're going to build on all of those things as we go. And again, Dr. Weeks is the first one that said these things. I didn't make this up. So, acceptance, we just talked about that. And courage, you want to talk about courage? I mean, it's a big part of this. You can't
Courage
do
is the
this
one.
without it. You have,
Yeah.
and I think we all have it. But this is where everybody gets tripped up. You do have
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
brave. You have to be brave.
I think that's probably the stumbling block for many a attempt at
Yeah.
getting out there, is just having the courage. But I think with showing the courage, you also gain confidence, and I think those two things go kind of hand in hand.
That's true.
You just display that bit of courage, and even if it doesn't go fantastic, whatever it is that you're doing to try and overcome,
Right.
the fact that you've been able to show the courage to do it once means that you can do it twice, 3
Yeah.
times. You know,
100 times. Yeah.
exactly, as many times as it needs, and if the progress is even minuscule, it's progress that's worth making, isn't it? That's the point.
I think so. I mean, I think that, if you're standing at the front door and you just can't bring yourself to go out, you haven't done that, or you can't do it without your husband or your wife or your mom or whoever, just opening that door, even just opening the door is.
I think we spoke about it before. Sorry,
That's okay.
You said just. I remember when you first started, just putting your shoes on, tying your laces up.
Yes.
That is a step in the right direction. And
Yes.
like you say, just going to the door. You don't even have to open it. Just being prepared mentally
Yeah.
to attempt to just take a step, and then maybe tomorrow open the door.
That's right. I mean, and it's tiny little building blocks, but every time you do one of those things, for me, you're right, lacing up my shoes or just going to the front door, as opposed to knowing like, oh, there's no way I'm going to the front door. You are displaying courage when you do that. So so many people say, well, I can't do this because I'm not nearly as brave as you. Or we have a mutual friend that would say all the time back in those days, like, well, the boys are out. That would be you and me and Chris, in Ohio.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the boys are out doing these things, but they're way braver than me. And what I always try to tell people is, no, you're as brave as me or anybody else.
Exactly.
And it doesn't, courage, I always like to definitely point out, courage doesn't mean that you're not afraid. It means that you're afraid, but you do it anyway. That's courage. Courage isn't not being afraid.
Feel the fear and do
it
it
anyway, right? Somebody wrote a book about that, I believe.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you can't do this without finding that inner courage. And sometimes, like Billy was saying, you have to find it in tiniest little steps. And that's okay. And then once you find it, suddenly you'll notice how much you have, and it'll build your confidence.
It does. It does 100%.
Yeah.
So with me at the moment, I'm going out quite a bit in the car, and every time I do it, I'm feeling more of an urge to get out of the car and just, and that's just, I guess, it's confidence and courage. It's just me feeling a bit more confident with me getting out there, and that just breeds more courage. It breeds more confidence, and that's a lot of it.
It makes a big difference. You have to have it.
Yeah.
It's a big part of it. So the acceptance.
But then obviously,
yeah,
I was going to say the next key is persistence.
Persistence. Yeah, you want to talk about persistence? I mean, you know all about that.
That's well, that's it. You've just got to keep doing it, haven't you? No matter how hard it gets, no matter how low you're feeling or how sensitized you are, I guess, whatever it is.
It doesn't matter.
If you don't get out there and do the work, then you can't expect it to improve. You've got to put yourself in these positions. And
it's just like, essentially, from where I sit, because I'm sort of a dyed-in-the-wool behaviorist, these problems, you have panic disorder, you have agoraphobia, generalized, these are cognitive malfunctions. They're bad habits our brains have learned. And you have to unlearn them. And unfortunately, unlearning them is slower than learning them, sadly. That's just the way we are. But they're skills. Like, so you have to rebuild the skill of going to the supermarket, just like you would learn to speak French or ice skate or play a musical instrument.
This is it.
You have to practice it. You have to do it every single day, and you can't wait till the days when you feel good.
That's a mistake that I've made in the past.
Me too.
Yeah, 100%.
I think we've all been there. Or we reward ourselves a little too much sometimes. Like, I did the supermarket yesterday, so I hear this all the time. I'm gonna be kind to myself today.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a day off.
I'm gonna take care of myself today. And sadly, you cannot do that. You have to run roughshod over this by doing it every day. So I could tell you that for me, like when I was doing a lot of that driving, when it was hard for me to get out of the house, I would get up and do it first thing in the morning, and I would do it again like 2, 3, 4 times a day, which was monotonous and boring and tedious. But I have to tell you, going out and doing it at 6 p.m. was boring, and I didn't want to do it. But it was even on one day, it was so much. The 6 p.m. drive was so much easier than the 6 a.m. drive.
Yeah,
because I had done it 3 times. Of course, the next morning, the 6 a.m. drive was just as difficult as the one before.
Yeah,
so the progress was a little bit slow, but every day, as often as you possibly can, no matter how you feel. In fact, you have to do it when you feel your worst. That's when the most progress happens. I was going to say,
that's exactly when I learned the most about myself, is when I was feeling bad when I went out. Yeah. But 9 times out of 10, I would feel so much better when I got back. 100% better.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe not 100%, but yeah.
No, but light years better, because you start thinking like, there's no way I'm going to do this. I don't want to do it. I feel terrible today. I'm weak. I'm tired. I'm whatever. I'm racked with anxiety today. And somehow or other, 30 minutes later, you get back in the house and you feel like you could beat the world. So how does that happen?
Well, it's because you've just learned that it didn't matter how I felt.
That's right.
Before I went out the door.
Doesn't matter. That's exactly right.
I still made it home. I'm still alive.
Right. And in a lot of ways, talking about that, I displayed courage, and I accepted the way I felt, and I got out there. I was, displaying persistence, and I unmasked that fear and that discomfort as nothing, and now I feel great. So,
which leads us perfectly into point 4.
Yes. You should talk about patience. I'm the least patient guy I know.
Well, I don't know whether I've been patient in the past, but I feel that I am a lot more now. It's just seeing the steps as being so small, but it doesn't matter to me. Yeah. It doesn't matter how big or small the steps are. Right. As long as they're in the right direction, I'm patient enough to just see. I always believe that I will get there. I will get there one day.
That's cool.
And I'm just patient enough to do what I have to do now, put myself in these positions, and we will get there.
Well, that's true, and I think Dr. Weeks talks about allowing time to pass all the time, that displaying patience. That was the toughest part for me, because I'm very impatient, and I want results right now, and I'm not patient with myself. And so I would find, and a lot of people make this mistake too, like, I made it to the shopping mall, so therefore I must be better now. And when tomorrow, tomorrow, that's it. And how many of us, and I think if you're watching or listening, and you could probably relate to this, I'm sure, I used to do too, like, this was such a great day. And if I look back at some of my old YouTube footage from like 2008, 2009, I would sit there and make videos at the end of the day, some of which I never published, and I could watch myself saying, today was such a great day, like I could feel it, I've turned the corner today. And then the next morning I'd be right back to where I was. And And it would just get me down like, what happened? I thought I was over this yesterday. But so you're never going to be over it in a day or 2 days or a week. You can make huge steps in a couple of weeks onto that road.
Yeah.
But patience and kind of like accepting each thing that you do as a bit of progress, and you're building slowly. It matters a lot.
I think just one thing to note is that patience doesn't mean sitting on the sofa waiting all day. I think you've mentioned that in a past video. Is just that you can let time pass, but letting time pass while you're doing nothing isn't going to help.
No, and that's a really good point. Patience doesn't mean waiting to get better, because you won't. There's no like immune response that fixes anxiety. Like if you get the flu, it'll go away because your body will get rid of it.
Yeah.
But this,
I think maybe patience in the fact that if you suffer a setback, then don't let that drop you. Because in the past, when I've suffered setback, I've felt like I'm completely back to square one. But I think with the regards of patience, it's just like we're back to acceptance. But even accept that setbacks will be a part of the process.
Yep. And that goes back to persistence too. Even when you have a bad day, it doesn't matter. You got to get back out there again and do it. And you're right. Patience factors into it all the time. Understanding that this process takes time. And we should probably say, I'm not talking about years, but I think patience also, you have to keep that in mind in the framework, because we run into a lot of people who say like, I barely leave the house, or I can't leave the house without my husband or whatever. And next week I have to go to a wedding 200 miles away.
Yeah.
And, what do I do? Well, you have to understand that patience means time. So it's never too late to start. Start practicing getting in the car today for that wedding next week. But you can't go from stuck on the sofa to going to the wedding, 300 miles away in 2 days.
Not without consequences anyway.
Right. Yes. It's going to be a kind of a tough ride. You could still do it. I'm not saying don't do it, but I think patience to me always spurred me on when I realized that this takes time. Like, well, I have to start today then. Since this is going to take some time, I have to start today, not Monday, or wait for the new week or New Year's Day, or I have to start today, So maybe that helps.
There's no time like the present.
Yeah. So I think that's sort of our intro. And what I added, I'm reading, I'm sorry, but like I always say, it's a simple plan, but really hard to execute. Like, this is a really simple set of steps to take. But since you're doing everything counterintuitive to what your body and brain wants you to do, you have to ignore your natural instincts. You have to run toward the fear, toward the discomfort. It's hard to do this. It's hard. It's a simple plan, but it's hard to execute. But millions of people do it. Millions. I mean, I'm just some goofball from Long Island. I did it. Like I say all the time, I'm nothing special. So if I did it, everybody can do it. I'm sure of that. I'm 100% sure of that.
It's good. Well, that's it. There is only one way, essentially, to get yourself past this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I am in the loop, and I've been in the loop for a long time, but I take inspiration from you, knowing that I don't know.
Well,
you're a step ahead. You are a step ahead, but you've showed your persistence. The persistence in your process is what I think has got you to the point that you are now. Obviously, you showed the courage and accepted, but it was your persistence, the repetition, and putting yourself in that position. And with me, I kind of get to a point where I feel comfort instead of showing courage. I've spoke about that before, and that's, I'll put myself in positions, I'll get to a certain level, and then I'll just sort of settle for that.
Yeah.
But this is about going the whole hog and getting right on through.
I think at some point, what I found too, I guess we could chat a few minutes about this, is for me, persistence. Like, there were times when I didn't want to do it. Of course, we all have that, right? I'm no different than anybody else. And what I found that when I would hit that, I would get to maybe a comfortable spot, like, okay, I could drive to my office, the office that I had at the time, and I owned the company, and I couldn't go to the damn office. How bad is that, right? So
I remember those days.
You remember those days? How hard that was. So difficult. I couldn't go to the business that I owned. That was so hard. But it was only literally 3 miles from the house. With no traffic, I would get there in 6-7 minutes. And there were times when, okay, I would work to be able to get there. Okay, now I can get there. That's enough. That's enough. And then something else would come up. Like my daughters were taking, horseback riding lessons, and that was like 10 miles from the house. I couldn't take them to that. And that would spur me on, like, no, this isn't enough. Like, I haven't built enough here. This is enough. So sometimes for me, persistence was fueled with getting angry a little bit. I don't want this. I don't want to live like this. So however way you find it,
I was going to say, yeah, whatever the driving force is, go with it.
Be angry, be upset, be whatever. But I think we should probably circle back for just a second, too, with acceptance. Acceptance never, to me, and maybe you disagree or have a different view, I've heard people take that word acceptance and say, well, I just accept that I'm like this. You mean just accept that I'm like this? No. That's not what I mean.
No.
Yeah, you have to accept it. You accept the difficulty of the process. Don't just accept being this way if you don't want to be this way. Yeah. So,
I suppose, accept the way that you feel and just go for it. You've got to put if you want any kind of normal life. I don't know what normal is these days, but if you want to be able to go out and do the things that you want to do, that you dream about,
right, then
the 4 steps: accepting the way that you feel while you're doing it. Not just accepting it and sitting there and saying, this is it.
Yes, that's true. So, acceptance doesn't mean just accept your lot in life. This is the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be agoraphobic or whatever it is. So I think that's kind of the intro of the article. And the next episode, we're going to talk about that foundational concept that says that danger isn't real. And we could probably spend 45 minutes on just that. But that's what we're going to do next. Yeah.
That's it.
So, I don't know, do you have anything else you want to add on this one?
I'm happy. This was just a short intro to the series that we're putting out, and we'll put some effort in, try and help me while we help you. That's why I'm here.
I think it's going to be good. I think we'll see. Yes, I think it's going to be good. And I urge, Billy, throw out, what's your social stuff? What are your contacts?
It's all Twitter. We are at Anxiety United, Facebook.com/Anxiety United. But you can find all the info on anxietyunited.com. But to be honest, I'm trying to steer myself away from getting bogged down in talking to other people about. So I'm staying off social media.
Okay.
That's basically what I'm trying to say. So if you want to find me.
Very fair. So if you want to ask a question, ask me, because Billy's going to ignore you.
YouTube is what I enjoy making YouTube videos, whether they're helpful stuff or whether it's me just rambling on.
Yep.
That's where my focus is at the minute.
Very good. So if you're watching on my channel, then definitely go to Billy's channel and subscribe and check out his videos, because they're tremendously helpful, I think.
And there's lots of them.
Yeah, there's lots of them, and you'll see someone actually doing that work. I'm just blabbering at you and telling you what to do. You could watch Billy actually do it.
Yeah, you're the technical, you're the science, you're the brain, and I'm just the guinea pig.
You're actually the guinea pig. Wow, that's rough. That's harsh.
I don't mind. I've been called worse.
Oh, God. Okay. So if you need to get to me, my website is thatanxietyguy.com. On Twitter, @thatanxietyguy. Facebook is also facebook.com/thatanxietyguy. I throw any questions you want, or in the comments section here on YouTube, or if you're listening as a podcast episode on the website. So you want to ask questions, bring them.
Don't forget That Anxiety Guy podcast on iTunes.
Yes, that's true. If you're on iTunes, you can find my podcast. I haven't been publishing a lot lately, but by all means, subscribe there. But as we go, we'll take questions. So if you want to send questions my way or Billy's way, we'll incorporate them into the future episodes and, follow along. Hopefully get something out of it.
That's it. Questions in the comments.
Yes, on YouTube.
There'll be links in the description as well to everything you need.
It's going to bury you in links and information. So bring your shovel to the next episode. All right, folks. I guess we're going to end it up here. Billy, thank you. It was cool.
It's good.
All right, man. See you on the next one.
You will indeed.
Yep.
See you there.
Bye. Hey, what's up, guys? Drew here. In the 5 years that I've done the podcast, I've never had a sponsor. But now it's time for me to put in a little plug for the day job, the business that I own. And that business is managed WordPress hosting. So if you have a website and it runs WordPress, and you'd like WordPress hosting that makes WordPress faster, more secure, and way easier than you ever imagined it would be, then check out Helix. You can find us online at imhelix.com. That's IAMHELIX.com. We took a long time to build Helix. I'm super proud of it. It works spectacularly. We take really good care of our customers, and I promise we would take really good care of you too. So if you're in the market for WordPress hosting that will blow your mind, check out Helix. I would appreciate the consideration. I thank you for coming by and listening, and I'll see you the next time.